So, good morning and welcome to all of you to this session in which we have the pleasure to have Professor Svitlana Khyliuk with us. Not sure I got it right, but I tried.
Perfectly right, thank you.
Thank you. Professor Svitlana Khyliuk is spending some time with us here at UAM. She's Associate Professor of the Theory of Law and Human Rights Department at the Ukrainian Catholic University. She's giving some talks, holding seminars, doing some teaching, invited by Manuel Cancio, full professor in criminal law. The title of her session today, of her talk, discussion, whatever you want to call it, poses a fundamental questions for which there could be multiple answers. War in Ukraine, what are we fighting for? And indeed, one wonders was worth to fight for in 21st century Europe. Russian full-scale, unprovoked aggression against Ukraine has ended 70 years of peace in Europe. It has devastated cities and major infrastructures. It has destroyed millions of Ukrainian lives. It has cut fundamental food supplies. It has provoked an unprecedented energy crisis. It has created instability in world order and put the whole continent, indeed the whole world, at risk. This is not simply a conflict between Russia and Ukraine, a battle between Putin and Zelensky. It affects us all, is affecting us all. The courage of the Ukrainian people to resist the invasion of Russian troops is certainly to be admired. Europe and the Western world are making efforts to support the Ukrainian people in their fight. Universities are also doing their bit by facilitating enrollment and welcoming students and staff from Ukrainian universities. We can also mention that as part of the EU's response to the Russian Federation invasion of Ukraine, there is soon going to be a new dedicated fellowship scheme, the MSCA for Ukraine, which will be implemented under the framework of the Marie Sklodowska-Curie actions. It will provide support to displaced researchers from Ukraine to continue their work at academic and non-academic organizations in EU member states and Horizon Europe associated countries, while maintaining their connection to research and innovation communities in Ukraine and facilitating the reintegration of Ukrainian scholars once the war is over. We hope that it will provide some relief to those academics who are suffering the consequences and the horror of this attack. We're privileged to host this talk, this discussion here at UAM in our Faculty of Arts and Humanities. And before I give the floor to Professor Tomás Cuadra Salcedo to introduce the speaker, please join me in welcoming Professor Svitlana Khyliuk.
Ahora. Buenos días, querida rectora, vicerrectores, decana, profesores, estudiantes, señoras y señores. Today we have the opportunity to listen our guest, Professor Khyliuk, talking about an important and disgracefully actual topic. We welcome her to our university, and we are especially proud of receiving her this past week in our law faculty as Erasmus professor where she has given already some classes to our students and also some seminars. For example, a seminar on the impact of the European Court of Human Rights on Ukrainian criminal law. My purpose here is making a short presentation because we are here today to listen to her and to debate with her and to ask questions to her. No? Svitlana Khyliuk is professor of law and head of the law school at Ukrainian Catholic University in Lviv, our Leopolis, no, in Spanish, in Ukraine. Professor Khyliuk obtained her degree in law and PhD degree from Ivan Franco National University in Lviv. The fact that she had studied law in the University of Lviv, of Leopolis, made us remember the recent and excellent book of Philip Sands, East-West Street. I remember that in this book, Philip Sands, an international lawyer that has taken part in important international trials like Pinochet trial or Yugoslavian trial or Rwanda trial, also explore the lives of two Jewish lawyers, Lauterpacht and Lemkin, who were students in the University of Lviv in the 20s of the last century. During the Nuremberg trials in the 40s, they create the legal concepts of genocide and crimes against humanity. The book that I really recommend you and has received the British Book Award in 2017 is a fantastic story of the origins of international human rights law after World War II. Professor Khyliuk, who studied in the same university as Lauterpacht and Lemkin, has been teaching criminal law and human rights since 2004 at Ukrainian University, but also as visiting professor in Spain, Portugal, and the Netherlands. She was a legal expert of the Council of Europe project supporting institutions to combat treatment in Ukraine, and also currently is the director of the law school at this Ukrainian Catholic University in Lviv. She is a legal expert of the OSCE project, coordinator in Ukraine, and is a member of the Academic Advisory Board of the Constitutional Court of Ukraine, member of the Academic Advisory Board of the Supreme Court of Ukraine, and member of the Academic Council of the Ministry of Education of Ukraine. The title of her conference today is War in Ukraine, What Are We Fighting For? And I must remember that 10 days ago, the 4th of September, Olaf Scholz, the Prime Minister of Germany, pronounces an important speech at the University of Prague. It was the first major exposition of European policy that had made a new German government. In that speech, we can find an idea related with today's speech, exposition about what are we fighting for. The idea of Scholz was that the European Union is supporting Ukraine under attack because it's necessary to defend the idea of Europe and its values. Ukraine will be fighting these days for the values on which the European Union is founded. Ukraine is fighting for our democracy, not only for his democracy. Let's now give the word to our guest, Professor Svitlana Khyliuk. Thank you.
Dear colleagues, thank you so much. It is my great pleasure and honor to be here today. And I'm grateful to the Autónoma University of Madrid for this opportunity. I appreciate that despite the tight schedule in the beginning of the semester, you found time and opportunity to come here and to address Ukrainian problem. Also, let me say thank you to the university administration and to the whole university community for the support Ukraine get from the university from the first day of the war. And it really means a lot for us. Thank you for everything you are doing to support Ukraine and to support Ukrainian people. I'm from Ukraine. These words did not mean much 6 months ago. But now, being from Ukraine means readiness to fight for freedom and dignity, no matter what it will cost. It means ability to survive and to remain human in any circumstances. Ukrainian resistance to Russian aggression makes Ukraine, its strengths, its identity visible for the whole world. What are we fighting for? I found the answer for myself in February 24th. The situation was difficult. Russian troops were near Kyiv, not Kiev, but Kyiv. Had some military units, Russian military units were fighting within the city line. As a million of Ukrainian women, I decided that the first thing should be done is saving my kids. So I took mine and we tried to get to the border. Lviv is not far from the border with EU and just 60 kilometers. But at that time, road was already blocked by a huge number of cars. We could not get to the border by car. So to get to the border, we hiked by foot 15 kilometers through the whole night. So could you imagine this trip? Winter, night, 2 kids, 5 years old and 11 years old, 15 kilometers long, 7 hours standing in the crowd of women and kids on the border, no warm food, no possibility to sit, no possibility to use toilet, but I had time to think. At that moment, you get clear understanding of what is really important. And for me, I defined it that there are at least this 3 stuff. First, life, family, and home. Ability to live at your own home with your family, to have dinner together, to sleep in your own bed, not in a bomb shelter or a refugee camp, is crucially important. And you can lose it at a moment. The second thing, dignity, which means freedom to live your life as you want to live it, not as a dictator wants you to live your life. To be treated with respect, to speak your language, to commemorate your heroes, to have your own history and culture. And the third important thing for me was a right to have a future, to have a chance to develop yourself, to serve your community, to be open to the world. All these things are worth fighting for. Without all this stuff, our biological existence does not matter. When you have 15 minutes to pack your previous life in a small backpack, you have the feeling that you are cutting off your past, and by doing so, you are losing your future as well. So I crossed the border, gave my kids to my brother. This year he is teaching in Poland at medical university, and went back to Lviv, to my university, to my faculty, to my students, back to my life. To continue doing my job, because in my case, this is the most effective way I can contribute to the victory. Right now, we are paying a huge price for historical chance to get rid of Russian slavery, and we are going to win. The victory in this war has many different dimensions. Each of them will have huge implications for the future of Ukraine, for the future of Europe, and I dare to say for the future of the whole world. I'm a lawyer. For me, victory includes a proper legal assessment of all what happened during the conflict. So to win means also to call what have happened by its name and to punish those who were guilty for atrocities. There is no doubt that Russian high-ranking officials committed crime of aggression by full-scale unprovoked invasion of Ukraine. One cannot deny the fact that action of Russian army present a huge catalog of almost all possible infringement of international laws and customs of war. Each episode taken separately could be assessed as war crime or a crime against humanity. But when we look at the whole picture, we may see something Europe has already seen during Second World War and in Srebrenica. Its name is genocide. Crime of all crimes. Ukrainian parliament labeled Russian actions in Ukraine. I'm sorry, I forget about my presentation. Ukrainian parliament labeled Russian actions in Ukraine as a genocide. Canadian, Lithuanian, Czech, Estonian, and others did the same. Despite the fact that these are political statements, they are the first steps in the right direction. The concept of genocide, as it was already told, has strong connection with Lviv. Rafan Lenkwin, who conceptualized the term of genocide, was born there and he started his legal studies there. One fact, 49 members of his family were killed in Jewish ghetto during Holocaust in Lviv. At the very beginning, the concept was not well accepted. It took him years and a lot of efforts to prove that crime of killing a group of people for only reason that they belong to a particular national, ethnic, or religious group deserve at least its name and corpus delicti. Under UN Convention on Prevention and Punishment of the Crime of Genocide, it goes too quick, I'm afraid. I'm sorry. So, under Convention Against a Genocide, genocide means any of the following 5 acts committed with intent to destroy in whole or in part a national, ethnical, racial, or religious group. Such 5 actions are the following. First, killing member of the group. Second, causing serious bodily harm to the members of the group. Third, deliberately inflicting on the group condition of life which lead to the physical destruction of the group or the part of the group. Fourth, imposing measures intended to prevent birth within the group. And fifth, forcibly transferring children of the group to another group. What makes genocide special is special intent to destroy national, ethnic, racial, or religious group as such by means of physical violence. Now let me give some numbers. More than 1,300 dead bodies of civilians have been already found in Kyiv suburbs, which had been under Russian occupation just for 3 weeks. 3 weeks, more than 1,000 civilians killed. There is information about mass rape. According to UN data, 20% of Ukrainian women leaving the country from occupied areas suffered sexual violence. The youngest kid raped in Bucha was 2 years old. She did not survive. According to the intelligence data, there are at least 2 Buchas in Kherson region. This area is right now under Russian occupation. Approximately 2 million of Ukrainians were forcefully deported to Russia. 20% of them are kids. Unfortunately, violence against civilian population often comes with armed conflict. But what turns war crime into genocide is the special intent to destroy a particular group as such by means of physical violence of different kind. To prove special intent is the biggest challenge of this type of cases. But Russia does not make any secret of this intent. 3 days after Bucha atrocities became known to the world, Russian official press agency RIA Novosti published an explicit program for the complete elimination of Ukrainian nation as such. Professor of Yale University Timothy Snyder called this document the most genocidal he has ever seen. This Russian program postulates that the majority of the population of Ukraine are Nazis. By Nazis, Russian establishment means Ukrainian who refuses to be Russian. Such people, the majority of population, so more than 20 million people, are to be killed or sent to work in the labor camp to expurgate their guilt for not loving Russia. Survivors are to be subject to re-education. One more example. Russian member of Russian parliament publicly, Mr. Zhuravlev, publicly announced that to solve Ukrainian problem, it is necessary to kill just 5% of its population, who represent the most active part of the society, manifesting their Ukrainian identity. The rest will be easily converted into Russian afterwards. President of Russian Federation, Vladimir Putin, on many occasions denied the right of Ukraine to exist as a nation or as a state and claimed the necessity of a final solution of Ukrainian issue. By the way, Putin rewarded the military units which occupied Bucha, and by doing so, he sent a clear message to Ukraine, Europe, and the whole world that the Russian state considers such action permissible. Why it is important to qualify atrocity committed by Russian as a genocide? I'm aware of the fact that it is easier not to face the truth that this is a genocide, pretending that nothing more than ordinary war crimes are happening, which is part of any war. Otherwise, it is necessary to acknowledge that established after Second World War security system does not work, that never again is just an illusion or dream. But to solve the problem, one has to acknowledge its existence first. And the second step is to name the problem. Without these two steps, Ruski Mir could knock to the door of any European country one day. Legal assessment of Russian atrocities as a genocide will not help those who have been already killed, but it may help to save other lives, in order to make never again real again. And my final point. Quite often, talking to my colleagues, I hear the message that Russia could not be defeated. But our answer is no, it should be. Otherwise, the whole continent will be in danger. Otherwise, Russian punishment will encourage other autocratic forces in Europe and outside to raise head. Without Russian defeat, any kind of security system in Europe is impossible. Speaking about Russian defeat, I do not mean Ukrainian parade on center of the Moscow, but I mean that Russian troops should leave Ukrainian territory, including Crimea. The damages should be paid, and those responsible for atrocities should be brought to justice. To sum up, I will answer my first initial question. What are we fighting for? As an individual, we are fighting for our dignity. As a nation, we are fighting for the right to exist. As a member of European community, we are fighting for never again, real again. So stand with us. The evil will be defeated. Thank you for your attention, and I'm open to your question.
Thank you very much, Professor Khyliuk, for your talk and also for the horrifying but real images that you've shown in your presentation. I'm now going to give the floor to Professor Laura Pozuelo, who is going to open the debate and moderate it.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Professor Khyliuk. Thank you for your lecture. I think it's been very, very, very interesting with a lot of ideas. It's very thought-provoking, and I have some questions, but I think it's more interesting to the question of the public. So I encourage the audience to ask a question to generate to provoke this debate, this discussion. So the discussion is open, please.
Ukraine needs the help of the European Union, of the NATO partners, and so on. So it's a difficult question. Most wars didn't end with a victory. So the second option, as Manuela said, is a peace agreement. So there are some negotiations going on, and this means that each of the part has to do concessions. So what would be the concession? You said there can't be any concession, but in a peace agreement, there should be any type of concession on behalf of Ukraine also. And the third point, maybe the most interesting, would be the division of the Russian government or the end of Putin. How do you see the last scenario? Maybe you can concentrate a little bit more about the last scenario. But there's some discussion now going on what's happening in Russia, inside Russia. Thank you very much. Very interesting, you, and very emotional. You have our solidarity, so thank you very much.
Thank you for your question. I agree that I'm aware of the fact that every war ends by some kind of agreement, but each side has a position, and there is some things that you cannot give up. You just can't do this, and that's it. And all the other stuff is could be negotiated, but each side has key point. For example, if someone threatens to kill you and he is ready to stop just cutting your leg, is it a position for negotiation? I think no. So regarding what is happening in Russia, as far as we understood situation inside of Ukraine, majority of Russian population support this so-called special military operation, because to name war by its name in Russia nowadays is punishable with criminal sanctions. So majority of population support because they do not suffer consequences, not yet. And Russia pretends that nothing happening. So their losses is a state secret, and even the family of killed soldiers are prohibited to spread this information in the society. Quite often, they use prisoners to fight with them. That's why it's easier to cover real losses. So this problem is that the majority of population support Putin's regime, and majority of population support this military operation, which is problematic. And as far as we can see the surveys, from beginning of the war till now, the support of Vladimir Putin among his population just increased. This is a really problematic statement, because I'm not quite sure how reliable are surveys in autocratic countries, but we do not have much other information. Before the war, we had quite close contact with academia, and all these contacts were cut off in 2014. Russian academia, even on a personal level of communication, they support that this attitude towards Ukraine, that Ukraine is something like Russia, and that we belong to Russia, and we have to obey and to accept our ways. This point of view is supported even by academia, even on personal level. And what was the most striking for us at the very beginning, that rectors of majority of Russian university publicly supported, students of organization publicly supported the war. And such a personal example, my law school, we pay a lot of attention to the participation of our teams in international moot courts. Normally, these moot courts take place in a spring semester. So after beginning of the war, there was a huge season of all kinds of moot courts. And the question was whether teams from the universities who publicly supported this aggression, the breach of international order and human rights, could participate in human rights international moot court. And we raised the issue before organizing committee and before other participants, and quite often all other participants supported that it's not appropriate to have Russian teams there. But organizing committee, as a rule, stays silent. So what does it mean for me? It means that there is huge problem within Russian society. Russian was a colony, was an empire, and right now, Russians as a society have a lot of work to do to overcome this, to overcome their past, and to accept that, for example, if during Roman time, Spanish territory was a part of Roman Empire, is it entitled Italy to bomb your cities? Because 1,000 years ago, this territory was belonged to Roman Empire. Is it possible to do so? Is it a good argument? So, as for me, I have no clear answer for your questions, but still, what is clear that Russian society supports the government, and not only the ordinary people, but even well-educated people, people who have Western education, who traveled a lot, who had opportunity to see the world and how it works. Some of them still support this imperial approach. And that's why there is a lot of work to do. At the same time, I have to acknowledge that there are some communities and some persons who are against the regime. For them, it's almost impossible to stay within the country. So they are outside the country. Many of them, these public intellectuals who support Ukraine and who publicly wish Putin's regime to lose in this war. And they saw defeat of Russia in this war as a chance for Russian state to do its work and to find a democratic way of further development. So those who keep ability to think critically and who share European values, those part of Russian intellectual community, those small part of Russian academia, they consider that Russian defeat could be also a chance for Russia state and for Russia society to find their way and to find their proper place among civilized nations. Thank you.
More questions, please?
I have. Oh, thank you. I have. It's working. No, I didn't hear myself. But I think it's like listening to Plato. You are talking about the human rights and all these things that are very interesting. But the recall you made of Russia recent history, you may try to do of the United States and see what is the difference. So my feeling is that I feel very sorry for the Ukrainian people. But my understanding is that you are like a ping-pong ball between West and Russia on a geopolitical crisis that will come probably to the entire world. And so I don't know what is the solution, of course. But the solution is not to think that your neighbor is going to change. It's not going to change. When you said that you had to recover Crimea, you know how many Russian dead people were in Sevastopol in the Second World War? You think that anyone, even your own Ukrainian people, will deliver that freely to Ukrainian as a government? Please, I think it's good to have this kind of thinking. But war has nothing to do with rights. It's war, and have different laws. That's only my comment.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for your comments. And in this, nowadays, world are so globalized. Everyone depends from others. So war in Ukraine started the food crisis in other areas of the planet, and this is really a problem. War in Ukraine have implications for the other end of Europe, for example, for Spain economy as well, because Ukraine was supplier of some particular stuff like grains for cattle and etc. for Spain. Everything is connected. The war problem in one part of the world will have consequences for the other. Of course, this attack against Ukraine is not a single act. Of course, it is connected with many global geopoliticals in different geopolitical interests, and we are not free of that. But all not researchers but politicians gave us 3 days, as far as 72 hours. German government want their councils that, for example, in Kharkiv, that Kharkiv has 1 day, 24 hours. Kharkiv is still Ukrainian city. Yes, it is bombed. Yes, many people were killed, but Kharkiv never, ever, even single day, was not under Russian control. So war, it's a British phrase that war will make your plan, and the development is not determined, and therefore, from standpoint of Ukrainian society, we are fighting just for chance to exist as a state and as a nation in this globalized world, and for the first time, maybe. We are the subject of the process, not an object. I know what are you talking about. Yes, we depend on European support, financial, and yes, we depend on US weapon. But at the same time, if we would be defeated in 3 days, now Russian army would be in Poland and Baltic state. And that would be a problem for European Union as well. Maybe not now, but in a few months. So nobody knows for sure. And that's why we are doing what we have to do, because we do not have another option. And then we shall see.
Thank you very much for this wonderful talk. So I have to say that peace and freedom do not happen in a historical or geographical vacuum, okay? And I think that you, in your country, I agree with you, you are fighting for our rights and our freedom here on the other side of the continent. Ruski Mir, it's a terrible place to be. I think that Ruski Mir, they will try to expand it to Ukraine, to the Baltic republics, to Finland, to Poland, like you just said. And at some point, they will try to govern our countries through their puppet political parties. And we already have some of them here in Spain, okay? So I think that we have to support you in all the ways possible. This means war, violence, this means death, but it's the price we have to pay. It's the price that you are paying for all of us, okay? So I have to say thank you very much, and if there's anything that I can do for you, just let me know. I'm just a humble neuroscientist, and I cannot go to the front line. They would kill me in a minute, but if I can just do something, let me know. I'm sure that in this university there's a lot of people who is willing to collaborate with the Ukrainian government, because we are very well aware that what is at stake in Ukraine is not just a Ukrainian problem or issue, it's about all of us. We are fighting existential war. You are fighting existential war for our open societies. And I think that we all should be very well aware of that. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. We do not ask no one to die for us. We will do this ourselves. We are asking for support of other kind, for financial support, for military support in terms of supply of weapons. And speaking about academia, we are asking to do what the academia can do in the best way, to ask a proper question, and to be brave enough to give honest answer to those questions for yourself, for your colleague, and for your student. And this will be the great contribution you can do to this war. Thank you.
Please.
I have no knowledge whatsoever about international law or human rights law, but as a human being, as we all are human beings, I think it's so normal to have concerns about what is going to happen and about what it means when there's conflict, when there's war, and when there's human rights at stake, and when there's things like crimes against humanity, what that implies to the international community. And I wonder if Ukrainian people, you being Ukrainian, are you happy or content? More in an academic perspective, taking into account that you have knowledge about international affairs. Also, as a person, what do you think about the paper? Let's say the paper that international community is having with Ukraine, like the support, the intervention, and my other question is, when there's crimes against humanity, what is the procedure that has to happen to help those people that attempted against the people that are victims? What is the procedure that has to happen in order to hold them accountable? Let's say there's a need for tribunal, like a international tribunal, or only Ukrainian people are entitled to judge Russian bosses, dirigents?
Thank you. I will try not to turn my answer into lecture. Of course, there are two levels, two mechanisms. A national one, so those person could be responsible under Ukrainian national criminal law, but being his Russian citizenship, I'm aware of the fact that it's few chances to get them to face the trial. But those who were detained and, for example, commit such crimes, few of them have already faced trial in Ukraine, who killed civilians and then were captured by Ukrainian military forces. But the other level is international. It's a strange fact to acknowledge, but Ukraine has not ratified international Rome Statute yet. But Ukraine, as a state, recognized jurisdiction of the International Criminal Court over everything what has happened in Ukraine since 2013. So, regarding crimes against humanity and war crimes, those responsible for this type of offenses, they could face trial according to Rome Statute of International Criminal Court. Situation is uncertain regarding crime of aggression because Russia did not ratify Rome Statute and it will never do this. So no chance to to have the head of Russian state accountable for making this decision to start the war. Therefore, right now, international community and Professor mentioned Professor Philip Sands, who is a famous British professor on international law. He leads the group of international law professors from all over the world, and they institute. So they start a discussion on institution of a special tribunal for crime of aggression, crime of Russian aggression against Ukraine. This is an idea. The mechanism is not set. But I think that, for example, after the Second World War, during the Second World War, there was no mechanism either. But still, people found, people of goodwill and legal professionals found opportunity to bring those who were responsible for this atrocity during Second World War to responsibility. And I think that in our situation, having such high-level professor in the group, working on the group of experts to find a way to establish legal mechanism to give a proper legal assessment of what is happening in Ukraine, this could be done in some way, but it is not set, yes.
Thank you. I think it was first you and then you. Thank you. Please. Oh.
Hello, can you hear me? All right, my name is Seraphim. I have rather a personal question. Since the war started, I can't get out of my mind that there are people of my age and, well, of my complexity who would end up dead because of this war. They would not have the same opportunities and chances that I have. And, well, my question that I came here for was, what are they fighting for? You've answered it perfectly, for the dignity and liberty and national identity. However, my question persists. They may flee to another country and they will conserve their dignity and liberty. Now, regarding national identity, well, it's a very abstract concept, isn't it? It depends on how you view the world. So, my question is, how do Ukrainian people view the sacrifice of the adolescents, of people of 16, 17, 18, 19, do you approve that they go to war and sacrifice all of their future for this? Well, for me, it's a very abstract concept. Or do you recommend your students go to another country and live their life? Well, that would be my question.
Thank you. And it's a really deep question. I do not give my student recommendation. I say them that you have a choice and it's up to you to decide. And I am happy to say that many of them decide to stay because it's completely different. So previous academic year, I spent half a year in US doing my fellowship at Notre Dame University, Indiana State. And when I was leaving US, like everyone who knows me on campus said me, "Are you crazy? You have Russian troops on your border. What are you doing? You can stay." And my family, my kids were with me in US. And frankly speaking, I could stay. And I made my decision. I'm not at your age. I may be twice older than you, but still I have something ahead. And I decided to stay. And it's difficult. Why did I start from my personal story? Because there is one situation when you choose to stay and to leave, or to leave. When you choose a country where would be the best place for you to realize your dreams, your plans, to build your future. But this is completely different feeling and situation when someone expel you from your home. And it's difficult to explain how this works, but you have this clear understanding when you are leaving your apartment, closing the door, and have no idea whether you will be back. And at that very moment, you get this understanding, whether you want to go or you want to stay. And I had this moment twice when I was leaving my apartment on February 24th. And the second moment was when my brother met me on the border, and he was waiting the whole night for me and for kids. And I gave him my kids, said goodbye to them, and I was not sure whether I would have chance to see them again. And still, at that moment, you have this understanding. And I think that everyone has this understanding. It's very, you are right, because you warned me that this will be a very personal questions. And each person has this understanding. And being a head of a law school, I respect whatever decision my students make and whatever decision my faculty made. For those of them who decide to leave and to build their future in another country, I understand their reason. I accept this, and I respect their choice. But also, I know that for young people having all the life ahead to decide to go to the front line, it's really very brave decision, and I talk to them. Each of them has their own reason, and one of the reasons I had from my students is that it's not the first fight between Russia and Ukraine. This is not the first time Russia attacked Ukraine. It was happening for many centuries, but there were no internet and no chance to watch this online. 100 years ago, there was a huge famine on Ukrainian territory, organized by Soviet regime. 10 million people died because of starvation in such a rich agriculture country as Ukraine. My grandfather was survivors of the Holodomor, and we have the stories in a family. And till 19th, Ukraine was a dream for many generations. Ukraine as independent state was a dream of many, many generations. At that moment, many people has already sacrificed their life and their future and their ambition to have this. And when I talk to my student who decided to join the army, they have this feeling of responsibility. So I don't know what is not to have something to eat, because someone died for me to have this chance. And I was surprised that so many young people have this understanding that nothing should be taken for granted. And those chances that they have right now are not the chances they those chances they have right now were provided to them by someone else's sacrifice, and therefore they feel in some way responsible, and that they have to do their part of job, and that this is the reason for them to join the army. For me, as a professor, it's very painful experience, because I know that they should be in a law firm, in courtroom, they should be in an international organization, they should not be on front line with a gun, killing someone and trying to escape, be killed. But I respect their decision, and I understand their motives. They are higher than their own personal ambition, and this is so rare now in nowadays. But going back, this is that idea to serve to the bigger idea than your own life was in the basis of Europe civilization. Many generations of Europeans from many countries sacrifice their personal life and personal ambition for something bigger. And this is the basis of Europe. So we are not unique in this. We are doing the same what your ancestors did many years ago, and other European nations. So this is, at least I try to reply to your questions, but your question is so deep and so difficult that there are more than one possible answers. Thank you.
Requested an intervention, please. Yes, this one. Thank you.
I'm a bit sorry, but this may be also a difficult question. I'd like to refer to another connected topic which isn't covered that often nowadays. It's the interpersonal relations. Sure, I worry on the first hand about the future of Ukraine, of young people in Ukraine, of the democracy in Ukraine and the freedom in whole Europe and in the world. But I also worry about the relations which are probably between citizens of Ukraine and Russia, which suffer of the conflict. I could not imagine that there aren't close relations between people from Ukraine and Russia, because those two countries are neighbors. So I heard that you are a professor and director at a university, but you are also a citizen of Ukraine. So you probably know better if there are many relations between Ukrainians and Russians, or if they are rare. And my question is, what are your expectations, or where are the hopes that these close relations can, on the first hand, maintain and also fight against this pressure of the war?
Thank you. So Ukrainian society and Russian society on a level of on a personal level and family level had many connections. So many Ukrainian families have relatives in Russia and vice versa. And we hoped that this connection would help to show Russians the real situation, what is going on Ukraine, because from their television and from their propaganda, they have completely different understanding of different from reality what is going on. But it did not work. It haven't worked like this. In many families, people try to explain to their relatives what is going on, and as a result, many families were split. And the impact of Russia propaganda is so big, and and propaganda is so influential that it overcomes some personal attachment. We notice this on the level we notice this when speaking about academic cooperation. So all connection. Once a year we visited before the war. We visited criminal law congress in Moscow, and it was normal stuff. We knew a lot of people there. Nothing left, like no personal connection. And what I may hear from my friends and colleagues and students, in many occasions, situations is the same when we speak about families. Even such close connection like father and son, to sisters or to brother, and this is big disaster. This is big disaster. But I think that. After the war, it will be a lot of work to do to rebuild this some personal connections, because such situation was between French and German after the First World War, and two these countries and their society managed to do their work and to find opportunities to communicate, to understand and to forgive. But this could be done only after the war. And that's why right now situation is really difficult, and especially for example on the eastern part of Ukraine, they have very close connection with Russia on personal level, and now this is broke down. This broke down on personal, institutional, and all other levels. And I can give you like a personal example. My daughter, she's now 12, and she's back to Lviv. She refused to stay in Poland. She spent there 2 months, and that was enough, and she wanted back to her home. She had a friend from St. Petersburg, and she cut off this relation. And I tried to explain to her that this may be opportunity to tell the truth to a friend, and the answer of my daughter was, I just can't do this anymore. I just can't. After having this experience of leaving the country, and so she's big enough to read in news and to understand what is going on, but she is not strong enough to process this information properly. And her answer was, I just can't. I'm sorry. I can't do this anymore. So this is situation for now. Maybe, and I do hope that in the future, maybe it will be different. But justice go first. We can't pretend that nothing have happened. Because there was attack, there was aggression, there was a lot of sorrow for no reason on Ukrainian side. And to start this communication, to start this dialogue, Russian society should accept the reality and to say in some way, to say sorry. And then this will be the starting point for the communication. Because there are no other, we are neighbors. And we have many, and as far as there is a successful experience to overcome such disputes in Europe, my example between Germany and French, so we can use this and to build a dialogue for the future, for the sake of two countries, but not now.
Hi, I had a question because we had multiple questions about finding an agreement to end the war and kind of coming to a consensus to end it. And I wonder if you feel like there's a pressure towards the Ukrainian people, so to speak, to kind of give up their fight, or there's maybe a little bit of dismissiveness because of their lack of maybe military power or political power in the international field, and if you personally feel if the international community has done enough to support your country.
Thank you. International community did a lot, and we are grateful. And this is, as I was told, and as I has told previously, this is not the first conflict between Russia and Ukraine. This is not the first attack on Ukraine from Russian side, but this is the first situation when we are not alone. When we are not alone against this huge power as Russia is. And we really feel this support on different level, on a personal level, on a institutional level. And we have to be honest and to acknowledge that without European support and without US support, speaking in general, without Western support, we could not make it till now. Whether there could be done more, yes, as always. As always, it could be done more. But we appreciate everything that was done. And even such symbolic gesture like to have Ukrainian flag, or to offer hot tea for Ukrainian refugees, or to offer job for a woman with kid who escaped from Kharkiv region where her home was already bombed. It's really a lot. And this financial support, institutional support, and military support, it means it also, in some sphere, this support is decisive factor. That's it.
I'm afraid we have no more time for maybe the last one intervention, please.
That's basically a follow-up question, because you said it's the first time you haven't been left alone from the international community, and there has been a lot of discussion in different European member states that there should have been done more against Putin's powers, and I wanted to ask what your opinion is. Do you think it could have been avoided, that the invasion could have been done so far beforehand? even if Europe would have made stronger sanctions, for example, beforehand?
It's now difficult because nobody knows. Nobody knows, and nobody has access to Putin's mind. And according to the information I have read from reliable sources, the decision to attack Ukraine was made many years ago. And could we stop this? Could European community stop this? Maybe. So the first try was with Crimea. Occupation of Crimea was like first small step. Let's try and we shall see. The reaction was very smoothly, and maybe harsher reaction on this first step would deter Russia from doing the further steps. Maybe not. Nobody knows for sure. But Crimea was first attack against Ukraine. But before Ukraine, in 2008, there was attack on Georgia. And before that, there was attack on Moldova. I mean occupation of Pridnestrovia region. Before that, there was a conflict between Armenia and Azerbaijan. So to stop Russia, I think it could maybe it could be possible, but that should be done from the very beginning after collapse of the USSR. But I'm not sure. I do not have enough of information. But what I'm sure about that lesson should be learned. The violation of if we want to have international order, if we want to have effective security system, infringement of the rule should entail consequences. Otherwise, dictator would go further and further, no matter where from a dictator, from Russia or from other part of the world. So if we are a community and we made a deal regarding the rules, so violation of the rules should entail consequences. Otherwise, there will be a problem for everyone. So this the lesson we should learn from this situation as well, in order to build new effective security system for the sake of all, and Russian as well.
Okay, so our time is up. Thank you, Svitlana, Professor Khyliuk, for your talk and for these very interesting answers to the question that have been posed here. We're fully aware that that you're fighting an unequal war, and we're also aware that you've had to make difficult personal choices. You've talked about yours, but there are many people who've had to make equally difficult choices. People like you and the people of Ukraine are an inspiration for all of us, and I hope that we have succeeded in giving the people of Ukraine hope and support to keep fighting, because as somebody in the audience said, this is an existential war and there is a lot of stake for all of us. Let me finish with a simple message that you yourself have made. Make never again real again. Thank you very much.